Hi, this is John Hayden, and I'm doing the vlog of Chapter 2 of Alan Reed's Smartphone Paradox. And all in all, I think that this chapter was very interesting. I think this whole topic is interesting. And the summary I got from Chapter 2 is that Reed discusses the history and origin of the smartphone by describing what devices and scenarios led up to the smartphone. I think there's a lot of devices that led up to the smartphone and a lot of small technological advancements that led up to the iPhone, like when programmers would test the configuration of a computer language by inputting code. Alan Reed discusses that, and they would use Hello World and the significance of Hello World or communicating over on. He talks about how the first text message was in 1992. It wasn't really much, wasn't like a hello world, wasn't a big moment in our history. And I just think that's pretty, not sad, but I mean, I wish it would have been a little bit better, a little bit more larger event than it was, because that is a pretty big technological advancement, even in human history. I mean, we're communicating to each other using different devices. That's pretty cool. And one thing that he discusses as well for technological advancements, that the devices before the smartphone was a BlackBerry. And the BlackBerries, as Alan Reed says, BlackBerries were a pioneer for mobile devices to implement push emails. Push emails are emails that you get on your phone at that time, like early 2000s, or they would get the email and they get a notification on their phone. For us, we get a notification on our phone. That's no big deal because, we've had that notification on our phones forever. We had phones forever, in my generation at least. So for me to hear that, for people that didn't like push emails, didn't like their phone buzzing, didn't like that email by their side or have that easy access to the email, that to me was just weird to read. But then I started to understand, as Alan Reed says, that they got addicted to the properties of the device, causing them to keep it. So they got addicted to the small things, like probably opening up the BlackBerry. And I mean, I remember my mom having a BlackBerry, and I don't know how old I was. I was really, really small, but I do remember the BlackBerry. And that was well before the iPhone, obviously. But I do believe that people got addicted to the small properties of the BlackBerry and got used to that, and we're like, oh, push emails weren't so bad, which they're not. Having that easy access is a big game changer. But another thing that he discusses is the iPhone was such a vast improvement on these devices. We often associate it with the arrival of the modern smartphone. Like I said earlier, I think that the BlackBerry was just like agreeing with Alan Reed that it was a pioneer for the smartphone, because the smartphone is everything that the BlackBerry was, but way better. It had also notifications, push emails, you would say. And another thing that Steve Jobs did was he was a tweaker and didn't actually invent the iPhone. To me, reading that was a little, I didn't really understand that Steve Jobs wasn't the actual inventor of the iPhone, but it does make sense that he was a tweaker, because he was more of like a businessman than a tweaker. I mean, when he introduced the iPhone in such a grand setting, he said, quoting Alan Reed, quoting Steve Jobs, he said that we get to communicate freely, to be networked, to be informed, to be entertained, and to be mobile. And obviously, I mean, that's just great marketing for the smartphone. I mean, let's say, if I was my age, but back in early 2000s, and somebody showed me that, and I would be a little skeptical about the iPhone. I mean, I wouldn't want to buy it at first, but I mean, him listing those benefits of having the iPhone, I would definitely reconsider it and most likely have bought one. I mean, that's just me, but all in all, I think that this chapter was very well written, very well informed too. There's a lot of throwbacks of like iPhone, BlackBerry. I haven't heard BlackBerry in a while. which is, I mean, just in my childhood, seeing blackberries, pretty funny. But I mean, all in all, I think that this chapter was well written, well informed, and I was very entertained because I do like this discussion. And I think it's great, and that's all I have to say for chapter 2.